with the city and with the people of the city. If the Communist Party in China didn't want it, it wouldn't have happened. So it is not with the city of Zhuhai, it is with the state of China. The state of China has an appalling human rights record. Councillor Winnington says, I'm a member of Amnesty International. You ought to look up on the Amnesty International site. They have arrested women activists for supporting Women's Rights Day. The abuses that go on in Tibet are untold. Yet you sat there today, didn't raise a peep when we spoke about, or we approved, the sistership with Zhuhai. Yet here today and now, going on and on and on about the deal with Emirates. Now, they are just a company. It may be they are owned by the state, but they are nonetheless just a company that employs people in this country. They are bound by the laws in this country when they operate in this country. I do not believe they have human rights abuses within this country. So, Lord Mayor, I do wonder that what we hear from the Liberal Democrats is just sour grapes because they failed to deliver a deal, whereas we have. Not only have we delivered a deal, but we have also listened to the people in Portsmouth. Like many, I had concerns, shall we say, about the colour scheme. But this administration listened to what the people in this city said and has changed the colour scheme as a consequence. More than Liberal Democrats ever did in 10 years of power. Didn't listen to the people in Portsmouth, just went and ploughed their own furrow. We, as an administration here, have listened, have changed, and respond to the people in Portsmouth. We do what's right for the people in Portsmouth. As has been said, this deal will mean we don't have to make the cuts we might otherwise have had to make. We haven't heard a word from the Liberal Democrats about where they will make the cuts they would have to make if this deal didn't go through. It's all very well to say, well, we could have got somebody else. There was no, if they've said there was no other offer on the table, well, if there's no other offer on the table, then we're going to have to make other cuts. You can't have it both ways. It's either you're going to have to make other £700,000 worth of cuts each year, or there's another offer. And if there's another offer, well, where is it? And how much was it? There's an offer because our staff worked hard. They trawled and they pulled in a large multinational company. They're the only sort of companies that will have the money to do these sort of things. We'd like it, as Councillor Denny has said, we'd much rather have had it been a British company. But where is the British company with the money? There isn't one. So therefore, Lord Mayor, I say to you, we've listened to the people in Portsmouth. We have concerns about human rights, but it doesn't mean we put it ahead of what we think is right for the people in Portsmouth. We do think that it's right that human rights plays a part in life, but we must recognise that other countries operate to their own rules. We may not think they're good, but we have to accept that. Otherwise, we're going to start invading the world again. Is that what you want, Councillor Winnington? I don't think you do. So if we don't think their human rights records are up to it, we need to engage with them. We need to engage with them, and that's the way forward. That's why we supported the sistership with Zhuhai. We need to engage with the Emirates. This is a way to engage with them too. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. I call now on Councillor Symes, please.
Firstly, I'd like to commend Donna for the fantastic job she's done for this city since she's been the leader. We are now a city that's open for business. In my job in culture, I meet lots and lots of business people, and the one thing they say now is how wonderful it is to come here to do business because this city is so vibrant and alive now, and we're so open to offers from outside. Secondly, I'd like to deal with the colour. Now, the colour of the tower, to me, didn't matter one way or the other. And it was interesting to find out that the person who started this petition actually lived in London and worked in the marketing industry, so didn't live here. People in Southampton, frankly, think we're a bit daft because the Itchen Bridge was turned blue And we had no petitions from Southampton saying, oh, you can't have it blue, that's Portsmouth's colour. They showed they were grown up. I wish we'd done the same. Now, Councillor Stubbs and I, after the initial furore over the tower and the colouring, went and did our own survey. We went to all different kinds of streets and districts in Portsmouth. We asked people what they thought. We thought we were going to get a real telling off, but we were amazed. In fact, one man said to me, I don't care if you paint it in polka dot colour spots, as long as we get this deal, as long as we lessen the debt we're going to have to, the amount of money we're going to have to find. And I too would like to say to the Liberal Democrats, what do you want to do? Do you want to close a care home? Do you want to close a school? Do you want to reduce the planting in the city? Do you want to have school crossing controls stopped? Do you want to close community centres? What is it you want to do to find this money? Because it's not going to come out of thin air. Now, I think that we advertise the system. For one, I'd like to reiterate, the painting of the tower is not a planning consideration. Only the advertising was. It was advertised extremely well in all the areas that would be most affected, including the dockyard. And I think that Portsmouth should pat itself on the back, and I think the officers should be congratulated for doing a fantastic deal that's going to allow us to continue some of the services that would have had to have been cut had this deal not been made with them. And on human rights issues, if we're going to, in fact, be very strict about this, it should be across the board. It should be all things, as Councillor Ferret said. You can't just pick and mix because you want to make a political point. Now, I think we've made ourselves, well, we haven't, the Liberal Democrats have tried to turn this into a political football. And it really demeans them, but in turn, it demeans us as a city. And I feel very sad that they've had to resort to such childish and silly ways to behave in what is a most wonderful deal for this city. And it's been besmirched by them, and I'm very sorry about that.
Thank you, Councillor Symes. I call on Councillor Bosher, please.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. John, wrong colour rosettes. We'll probably put our hands on some blue ones if you want, so that you can match them with the tower. You're more than welcome. Councillor Gray, you're up for election. Maybe you want to consider where your best chances are. I seem to remember, Lord Mayor, that we had a standing joke that ran for best part of 8 of 10 years of the Liberal Democrats' administration. And those that might remember it, we used to have a sign at the ferry port which basically said, out of the city this way. And it took them so long before they actually got around to actually taking it down. Well, reality actually kicks in. They probably secretly wanted to keep that because at the best in the world, that's exactly what they're telling everybody. Out of the city this way. We don't want anybody coming into Portsmouth. We're all closed down. We don't want investment in the city. So everybody that comes out the ferry port, we'll send them up the M275 and away from Portsmouth. Because that's what the Liberal Democrats of this city want. Because this debate has sent out a dreadful message to anybody that wants to come and invest in the city of Portsmouth, that thankfully there are 3 parties here that are looking at Portsmouth beyond the politics, but unfortunately there is one party here that puts politics before Portsmouth, and if it's not in their best interest, Lord Mayor, then they don't want anything to do with it. The budget should be very interesting come November, and I'm really looking forward to that, because we're going to have a budget from Donna and the Conservative group, we're going to have one from John and the Labour group, we're going to have one from Colin and the UKIP group, and then we're going to have 2 from the Liberal Democrats. We're going to have one from the current leader of the Liberal Democrats, Councillor Vernon Jackson, and then we're going to have another one from the opposition party within the opposition party, which is going to show an extra £700,000 cuts. Because that's what I'll be looking forward to. Where's this money going to come from that you are basically wanting to flush down the toilet, Councillor Winnington, Councillor Purvis? Because I guess there must be some sort of, well, another Liberal Democrat leadership challenge probably in the offing. I mean, after all, Councillor Sanders got very, very close last time. Might be enough, depending on which way you vote, Councillor Sanders, to push you over the line this time, I've no doubt. There's been an awful lot of talk throughout a lot of this council meeting about openness and transparency. Referendum on this consultation on that. Well, blimey, there are a lot of councillors here that have been, not here very long that can remember life under the Liberal Democrat administration. How about the leader, the Lido and the lie? That didn't come to full council. Councillor Hugh Mason has said, oh, well, we started the advertising process when he was in charge of resources. He talked in terms of the fact that he had red lines in the sand. Well, probably that's not the right colour under the circumstances, but things that he wouldn't actually apply. But I'm sure he can stand up and correct me, but I didn't actually remember him coming to full council with openness and transparency and saying, these are my lines in the sand about what I will and won't accept as advertising on the Spinnaker Tower. Or perhaps that was just kept within the Liberal Democrat cabinet briefing meetings and it wasn't for wider consumption. There are some of us that also remember things like IKEA. Who remembers IKEA? Oh, yeah. That got chased out of the city by a certain cabinet member for Pred. And we didn't even have actually the benefit of the freedom of information system then to actually get it. I was the opposition spokesman on Pred, certainly through a lot of the early years of the Centros Miller, and getting information out with regards to the redevelopment of the Northern Quarter car park, which was probably a Liberal Democrat success in its own right, the fact that we got an expensive car park there. We never got any information coming here unless it required a decision over a certain amount of money. So don't talk to me about openness and transparency, because we've put up with 10 years under total secrecy under the Liberal Democrat leadership. And I find that absolutely amazing. What it's basically boils down to is, oh, we haven't got our toys anymore, so we're going to scream and shout about sharing those toys. Whereas beforehand, they wanted to hold all those toys onto themselves. Emirates. Been a lot of talk about their human rights record. My son actually spent 18 months working in China, and he came back last year. And for the last 6 months, he actually lived and worked in Beijing. 10 minutes walk from Tiananmen Square. Nobody in the immediate vicinity of Tiananmen Square actually even knows what happens with the student riots, because it's been suppressed. And those that do, and they talk about it, run the risk of arrest. So it's been said before, you can't sit there and talk in terms of a friendship agreement with a Chinese city and nod that one through and oppose this. You either vote for both or you oppose both. Or is it perhaps because one is a Liberal Democrat one and one isn't? I'll let you draw your own conclusion on that. But I'll give you some other thoughts here. Some of the sponsorships deals that actually Emirates have. And it's a quick Google. You can Google it. That's exactly what I did. Football-wise, AC Milan, Paris Saint-Germain, Arsenal, Real Madrid, Benfica. They're the global partner for Formula One. Cricket-wise in the UK, Durham County Council, Durham's County Cricket Club and Lancashire County Cricket Club, both of which have signed over the naming rights of their grounds to Emirates. Golf, the UK PGA Open. And I'll leave you with this rather ironic one, Councillor Winnington. They're also the global sponsor for the Nelson Mandela Open in South Africa.
Thank you, Councillor. There's 3 to go. Councillor Sanders, please.
Well, I always appreciate a warm hand on entry. I think my approach to this is actually the same as Councillor Vernon Jackson's. I'm pleased, Councillor Symes, I'm delighted that you've lived up to your reputation already. And the interesting thing about this is that I support the amendment put forward by Councillor Mason, but I will also vote for the motion put forward by Councillor Hastings and Councillor Symes, because it seems to me clear that this was good work by the officers, let down by politicians who seemed so seduced by the pound signs that they forgot to drive the hard bargains that people in this city deserve. Now, Councillor Stubbs is always consistent. It's one of his great strengths about these things. He said today, over both this and over the combined authority, that if people are in a more powerful situation than you, there's very little that you can do. I don't agree. We have an iconic asset here, an asset that will be worth millions upon millions of pounds. Thank you, I'll just leave way whilst you're getting the coffee or whatever it is. Millions, anytime, millions upon millions of pounds of this. And yet no one seemed to think that red and white might not be popular. I know people in the council who told me they knew this way before this deal was made public. They knew there would be a problem. If they can see it, why couldn't the politicians? Why couldn't, in such a big deal, the politicians take the people of this city with us and have the consultation they eventually had when they were forced by 10,000 people to actually say no? Why didn't they do that in the first place? Why didn't they think about it? Because I think the politicians, not the officers, the politicians were too scared to stand up to Emirates. The best thing that we can say about the administration's handling of this is they tried to get itself out of the mess that it got itself into. And because of the colour alone, that is why I would support Councillor Hugh Mason's amendment with regards to deploring the decision. Now, the other side of it is ethics. And for some people in my group, this is an incredibly difficult issue. If you think you've had Councillor Hunt today, he's been exactly the same with the rest of us. And that's why we have an ethical procurement policy. Now, when I asked questions in public about whether this deal complied with that, I expected the answer to be yes. Because I expected that an administration so concerned about human rights in March that it did not pass a friendship agreement with people in China would ignore them. Yet they did. They did not even ask the questions as to whether it matched up with our ethical procurement policy. Now, the Tory response today, we've heard it from Councillor Elcombe, we've heard it from Councillor Symes, is why are you worrying about this, but backing deals with towns in China? Yet it was Councillor Lee Mason who pointed out at the Cabinet meeting when the matter was discussed that there is a world of difference between friendship with people in a town or city and a contract with an arm of their government. Otherwise, deals such as that with Haifa, such as that with Suswan, would be very, very difficult to sustain. So the money this deal brings is welcome. Although, frankly, given all the promises that have been made as to where the money goes, it's dwarfed by the Tories' £1 million per year cut to our public health budget that has occurred since the election. Having a multinational company investing in our city is encouraging, although why ethical considerations do not matter seems to be a problem. Now, if I see leaflets saying that I or Councillor Vernon Jackson oppose investment in this city, and if I see leaflets saying otherwise, like the ones that say that the Tories delivered this money, and I'm also note from Councillor Hastings that the one people who are not praised in the motion, in what is in writing, is the Conservative administration. It is the officers who are responsible for this, according to the motion, and I agree, because I think the problem is this. The officers did great work. They were let down by the politicians who were too seduced by pound signs to drive the sort of hard bargains that were required. And if they had driven the hard bargains, we would not have got ourselves into the mess over painting a tower that this council managed to get itself into. I hope we learn lessons from the future, and that is why I back Councillor Hugh Mason's amendment and the motion. Thank you, my Lord Mayor.
Thank you. I now call upon Councillor New. That is Robert.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. What a performance. Okay, well, first of all, I'd just actually like to go back to the motion. I'm disappointed that it's actually here from Councillor Mason and Councillor Purvis, especially given that I actually have a lot of respect for Councillor Purvis, especially with his work around dementia care And as was pointed out by Councillor Weems and Councillor Stubbs, where is actually the list of things that would have to be brought forward in the upcoming budget to actually pay for some of these gaps? Because actually, let's be really honest, the leader's gone on record to actually say, Lord Mayor, that the money that's being generated by this deal will go back into adult social care, children's services, those frontline things which we all value across this city. We all have relatives, neighbours, we all know families that rely on them, but it's almost like, well, just tough because we want to make a political football out of it. And actually, I'm just really generally quite disappointed by this. But I would like to place on offer my thanks not only to the Leader of the Council, but also to Luke through his portfolio for the hard work that they've done. They are turning this council into Portsmouth PLC. It's the right thing to be doing. You know, there are lots of councils around us that are sitting there rubbing their eyes, you know, saying, why us, poor us, we're going to have to write to the government and say we can't meet these cuts. Isn't it terrible? And we're not going to create budgets, which is obviously illegal. And actually, we're taking a proactive stance on this, so I offer my congratulations to them. I also congratulate the officers who went beyond the pale, working well into the night on this. You know, they listened to the people, and now we've come back forward with a far more sensible offer. Emirates is a great company. I've flown with them many times. The UAE is a great place to visit. I challenge any of you not to go to Dubai and be fascinated by it. The people that live there and work there often are people that fly in from all over the world to move there and come and work in the hospitality industries and within the lucrative business industries, microtech industries. I myself, when I first visited Dubai, it's because I installed my flagship organ into the ballroom of the Burj Al Arab, the 7-star hotel there, which actually is what the Spinnaker Tower is based upon. So, you know, it's a great opportunity for this city moving forward with them. The distinction between the UAE as a country and Emirates as a company is absolutely ridiculous. There are people that work for Emirates from London, from Europe, from America. I have friends that are air hosts, pursers for them. They are gay men. They are not persecuted. You know, and don't get me wrong, I know that there are human rights issues, but that is nothing to do with a commercial deal. And this brings me on to my final point, which Councillor Vernon Jackson possibly may have fed back to his group after Cabinet, where I spoke at great length, actually, with regards to the friendship deal with China, with Zhuhai. It was with a heavy heart that I voted for it, because had I actually sat there and thought, oh, you know, there's no economic benefits to be gained for Portsmouth, I would have been there saying, no way. But there is, you know, and I can absolutely see why Councillor Stagg actually could see those inroads. However, what has disappointed me, just to go on with this, is it kind of seems to be that it's one rule for us when, you know, we can look at the things that we want to do and with who we want to do. But actually, when she was lauding it around in Zhuhai under civic duty and they're all adoring her, she thought, great, you know, brilliant. And actually, the economics of it is the right thing to do. However, let's just have a look at some of the things that has happened in China under their communist government. Tibet no longer exists as a sovereign nation. We can go on now as well, because it's not only human rights there, it's also animal rights. The Yulin Festival that Councillor Alcombe talked about has actually happened in the last week. And do you know what happens there? For anyone that's an animal lover and is bringing welfare motions to this council, certainly should know. Over 10,000 dogs and cats, many of them domestic, still with their domestic collars on, are stolen from people's homes across China and butchered at an illegal festival, which was outlawed by the Chinese authorities 2 years ago after local campaigners from within animal rights groups, international animal rights groups, descended upon China. It still happens. It's still going on. It's happening on the streets of Yulin. It is endorsed by the local Chinese government there. And if you were to look at it, you would be horrified. And when you see the pictures that were in the Daily Mail only last week, in the Express, in the Telegraph, when they were reporting on the fact that it's still going on and they sent undercover reporters in, is that a country we want to be getting into bed with? Absolutely no way. However, China is an economic powerhouse. And unfortunately, when it comes to commercial deals, things like that perhaps are not considerations, and it's extremely sad, because in that ideal world that you lot seem to be living in when you pick and choose, it would be great. But we don't live in that world, and we need to do what's right for Portsmouth moving forward.
Thank you, Councillor. And last but not least, I'm going to call Councillor Chowdhury.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. I doesn't talk about the political emission. I especially support this deal because I don't think so any other company offer this amount of money, and we need to support the community. And Emirates nowadays one of the reputed company in the world, and they got lots of deal all over the UK and other international country. So I especially support this deal and at least match the color and contrast for the city. That's all. Thank you very much.
I now call upon Councillor Hastings to sum up.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I think I was right. I said at the beginning that I wouldn't need to pressurise for anybody to debate this today, and that it would create a lot of interest. Now, that said, I think that a number of issues have come out. As I'm sitting here, I was thinking, oh, I want to say that, I must say that, I must say this. But various people, from Councillor Ferret to Councillor Gray to Councillor Jones to Councillor Williams, they've all said what I wanted to say. But in a nutshell, I think what the main thing I want to say actually is that I want to bring this right back to the notice of motion. With the hard work that was put in by officers, and Councillor Jones has been through all the names, they have put in so much hard work. And yes, of course, the administration had to as well, and the whole thing had to be brought together. And the reason that was all done, all that hard work, was for the benefit of this city. We have taken Emirates as, we now have the Emirates Spinnaker Tower. Get used to it. It's going to save us when we come to budget time. I only came to this council last year, and almost immediately we were thrown into budget situations. We were having discussions about what's going to be cut. Can we lose this, or should we lose that? Well, I'd rather we didn't have to lose anything. So bring them on, more deals like this is what I would say. And then we won't have to make the cuts. We won't have to get rid of a care home or dial-a-ride or whatever else we talked about last year. I want to keep all of it. And if we can make Portsmouth City PLC pay for that, that's fine by me. And I'm very pleased that Councillor Vernon Jackson supports this deal, and that was good to hear, and even against going against his comrades over there, I think that's a good thing to do, and good for you. And what's in a colour at the end of the day? And I know there was a big fuss about red and white, and there would be, of course. And when, as I said earlier, when it dawned on us all that we're dealing with red and white, of course there's a problem. But what happened, and actually, if you think about it, Emirates, for the price that they're paying, I think they've got twice the deal. Because you can't buy that sort of marketing. The amount of times that Emirates has been mentioned, named, printed, spoken about on TV and radio, for them, fantastic. What a plan, the cynic might say. You know, you really, if you wanted to plan it that way, you couldn't. Now, then there are other issues. We then come on to the human rights issue, and that, again, that's all been said by a number of people, and I absolutely agree. You can't have hypocrisy. You can't talk about it 1 minute about the UAE and human rights and then dismiss China and human rights. So that argument's out the window straight away, I'm afraid. That's just gone. The other point I just wanted to make was, amongst all the things that we've said about UAE, there are actually 13 women in the UAE Parliament, by all accounts. So, that's right, and the leader's heading there now. and at the end of the day, we're dealing with a corporate airline. That's what is sponsoring, and they are supporting us, not us supporting them. Let's get that the right way round. They are sponsoring our tower to put money in our bank so that we don't have to make cuts. And they are a corporate airline, not a country. And really, with that, I think I'm just going to conclude. But I would like to say that I would like a recorded vote when we get to the vote. Please, Lord Mayor. Thank you.
Yes, 8 members need to stand for that. If
To be clear, Lord Mayor, we're first of all voting on Councillor Hugh Mason's amendment, so there's a recorded vote. So could I say that those in favour of Councillor Hugh Mason's amendment, if they stand, and then could they kindly sit down as their names are called? Thank you. Okay. Councillor Hunt, Councillor Fuller, Councillor Stagg, Councillor Winnington, Councillor Dowling, Councillor Purvis, Councillor Horton, Councillor Ashmore, Councillor Sanders, Councillor Foster, Councillor Mason. Thank you. If those who are against the amendment could stand and sit as their names called, please. Councillor Chowdhury. If you could sit, Councillor Chowdhury. Councillor Ken Ferret, Councillor Gray, Councillor John Ferret, Councillor Vernon Jackson, Councillor Tompkins, Councillor Stubbs, Councillor Jones, Councillor Bosher, Councillor Alcombe, Councillor Stockdale, Councillor Weems, Councillor Hastings, Councillor Symes, Councillor Young, Councillor Gemenew, Councillor Jenny Brent, Councillor Hockaday, Councillor Ryan Brent, Councillor Rob New, Councillor Harris, Councillor Lyon, Councillor Galloway, Councillor Swan, Councillor Denny and Councillor Potter. Any abstentions, please? Councillor Godier. Okay, we'll just check that for you, Lord Mayor.
There were 11 members for, 26 against and 1 abstention, so the amendment is lost. We will now vote on the main issue, please.
The original motion as set out on the papers. So if we could go through the same due process. Those in favour of the main motion set out, please stand and sit as their names are called. Thank you. Okay. Okay. Councillor Fuller, Councillor Stagg, Councillor Chowdhury, Councillor Ken Ferret, Councillor Gray, Councillor John Ferret, Councillor Vernon Jackson, Councillor Tompkins, Councillor Stubbs, Councillor Jones, Councillor Bosher, Councillor Alcombe, Councillor Stockdale, Councillor Weems, Councillor Hastings, Councillor Symes, Councillor Young, Councillor Sanders, Councillor Foster, Councillor Dowling, Councillor Lyon, Councillor Harris, Councillor Rob New, Councillor Ryan Brent, Councillor Hockaday, Councillor Jenny Brent, Councillor Gemenew, Councillor Godier, Councillor Galloway, Councillor Swan, Councillor Denny and Councillor Potter. If those who are against the main motion on the agenda could stand and sit as their names called, please. Okay. Councillor Hunt, Councillor Winnington, Councillor Purvis, Councillor Horton and Councillor Ashmore. Any abstentions at all? Councillor Hugh Mason, abstention. Okay. Just bear with us a little, Mayor.
Members 32 for, 5 against, 1 abstain. Therefore, it's carried. Thank you very much. Before we go to the next motion, which is C, I'm going to call a 10-minute comfort break, please. And if you're back in by 10:02, that'd be fine. Thank you very much. Before we start, members, just one or two things. The tea and coffee will finish at 7 o'clock. Obviously, any food left there, carry on with that. Water will be available. I'd like to thank the two councillors, that's Councillor Lynn Stagg and Councillor Alicia Denny, for the cakes. And, thank you very much. The other thing, and I don't want you to take this as a bribe, is that when we finish, cold drinks will be available in the Lord Mayor's parlour. Oh, I didn't say that. Right, we're on to motion C concerning St George's Day. And the motion is proposed by Councillor Galloway and seconded by Councillor Potter. Would you like to move the motion, Councillor Galloway?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. This year, Nottingham Council celebrated St George's Day with a parade. What made this event so unusual is firstly the fact that the people of Nottingham showed vague feelings of patriotism, and secondly that the festivities were enjoyed by all, even though it was not recognised as a public holiday.